is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Combine here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Hussam Patel, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Eddy Mcgilvra. Eddie, how we doing today, my guy?
I'm good, man. I can't complain. How are
Of
you?
course, man. Thank you so much for being on. How has everything been?
Man, I everything is great. I just got done working with a group of vets out here in Southern California. Everybody headed off to OTAs. So pre is done and the draft's coming up around the corner. So exciting time.
It is exciting times, and for those who don't know Eddie is actually a pass rushing coach and an edge coach, helps defensive linemen and outside linebackers, and coaches up these people in the offseason, trains them for the draft and their pro day as well. So, I see that you're prepping for a lot of these up and coming rookies. You prep them for their bowl game, pro day, and then you make them train with the pros as well. Why this prep, and how do you think this helps them?
Well, I think I break it down in three phases. So bowl game prep, combine slash pro day prep, and then mini camp or training camp preparation for the guys. I think it helps the young guys to be able to intertwine with some veterans every now and then because they get to chop up ideas and kind of see what worked for them when they were coming out of college into the league. So that'll help them advance mentally. I think the bowl game prep is extremely important for guys going to the Senior Bowl because that's a huge showcase for them. And then combine and pro day prep, just making sure they're sharp and they're going through the muscle memory type of moves and drills that they'll be doing at their respected university or at the NFL combine if they get that invite.
Of course. Now, you said that, you were training some pass rushers out in Southern California. Were you training specifically veterans? I know you said you also combined the rookies as well, but what kind of veterans were you also training?
I've got a grip of I'd say like anywhere from 30 to 40 guys that are, either live in Southern California or they come out for weeks at a time and kind of go through the program, whether it's pass rush development or film study or footwork, all types of stuff like that we do just to get our body going, getting right for OTAs, and then they'll head over to their teams for OTAs and start getting adjusted into that sense, and then they'll come back in the summertime. And that's usually when the rookies, after the draft and everything, they'll come out for maybe a couple weeks, or I'll head to them for a week or so, and we'll prep a little bit more high intensity going into training camp because that's when the pads get put on and everything.
So, how did you get into coaching pass rushers in the college and the NFL?
And it starts just like anything. I feel like it starts like at the lower levels, like high school, youth. I always loved. I had like an obsession with trying to get guys to cut down wasted movements and eliminate wasted motions to help them progress their pass rush without having to do a bunch of extra stuff and just focus on one thing. And obviously starting with a get off, and I got lucky, had some guys have some success at a higher level, Division 1 level, and name kind of got floated around to different agents. And my first ever draft class in 2019, Quinnen Williams with the Jets was a part of it. So Quinnen going third overall was kind of rocket shipped my name into the industry, and then it kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear, man. I know Quentin Williams was one of your big guys as well, and then we'll talk about another prospect you trained for last year's draft class, who is now a Miami Dolphin as well. One thing I've noticed is that college prospects are lacking a couple things when they make the transition to the NFL, and it's mainly just lower or upper body strength. What do you think prospects are lacking heading into the NFL?
I think it varies for everybody. Some guys come out more polished, whether they had the resources at their university to become a good pass rusher or to become a good defensive lineman. And then some guys are just physically gifted, and they're not necessarily using too much technique at the college level, and they're able to just run around guys or run through guys or both. And when you get to the NFL, it's that doesn't work anymore for the most part. You have to really fall in love with the progression of being an incredible technician. You have to be able to watch film day in, you know, all night long. You can't take breaks if you're really trying to get to that elite level. And I think that's the biggest difference, man, is the level of focus. A lot of these guys, when you're in college, you don't necessarily only focus on football. You're a student athlete. You have a lot going on, but once you become a pro, it's strictly football. There's a lot of distractions around that, but it's strictly football. So you're able to really tune in on your game if you want to, and you can really level up. So that's what I think the biggest gap is just the level of focus and discipline.
Right. Focus and discipline. And how are you able to really guide those young guys making the transition from college to the NFL? Like, how do you help them?
Well, I don't try to change too much. I think that's the biggest thing is I'm able to evaluate these guys and see what they're good at and see what maybe I can be an extra set of eyes or help them see a couple things a little differently than they had never seen before. I don't try to change too much of their game because that's really what got them to the situation they're in, being able to get ready for the NFL. I think doing too much can be a double-edged sword sometime, and I think we really just break down certain pieces of their game and try to build on their strength foundation that they had in college.
Now, what have you learned from training your players who are making the transition from the college to the NFL? And what have you learned from your veterans who already are in the NFL?
Man, I learned more from those guys than I feel like they'll ever learn from me, to be honest. No, it's great, man, because it's like a fraternity in a sense, like the brotherhood of defensive line play, edge play. Like it's like we all want the same thing. Everyone wants to be able to get after the quarterback and make plays. So as far as what I've learned is just like, when I first started doing this, I definitely was really paying attention to my guys that would come out and train with me. Try to pick their brain, like, hey, what works for you? What doesn't work for you? What's changing every year? Because offensive linemen are doing the same thing in the offseason. They're working, trying to figure out small details and ways to defeat a defensive lineman. So it's constantly progressing. And if you're not open-minded and trying to learn every year, then you're probably just going to, static out. You can't really have that in this profession.
So, you've actually trained a couple of pass rushers on the Super Bowl winning Los Angeles Rams. What was that experience like and just getting the feedback from Super Bowl champions?
Man, it felt like I was a part of it in a sense. Like, the guys are very man, they're just very like open people, and they're always constantly asking questions, texting me, sending me clips. Um, so it felt like I was there in a sense. You know what I mean? Like it was a cool experience. I found myself rooting for the Rams, which I don't necessarily ever root for a team. I've been very, even throughout it all because I have clients on almost every team in the NFL. So it's hard to just root for a team. But being in Los Angeles and working with those guys more than anybody else, it felt like man, this I was a part of it. And then getting texts and FaceTime from the guys after the game, being like, man, I appreciate you. Really, really appreciative guys, and it was a cool experience. They definitely went right back to work though. There was no time off.
Right back into
Oh,
the
they did. They're
into
right
the
back
field the
in there
next
at
day.
OTAs. They started OTAs yesterday, just like everybody else. So they had a very short off season.
Well, that's good to hear they hit the practice field right after 2 to go ahead and potentially get a second straight Super Bowl. Let's go ahead, talk about some of the guys you've had, but
You know,
let's talk about your previous success. You've had three first rounders in 3 years, and you certainly know what you're doing. So, again, let's talk about the guys you had this year. And there's been a lot of rumblings that one of your guys, Aidan Hutchinson from Michigan, could potentially be the number one pick in the NFL draft. Like like what are you thinking about this? Like you're going to be training potentially the next number one draft pick in the NFL. Like it's going down in history books if it does happen.
Yeah, it's I actually like a lot of people just in my life have reached out about that, but I'll be honest with you, it's not something we really talk about. Like whether Aiden's going one overall or three or whatever may happen. Like he understands to control the controllable, and the guy's work ethic and focus level is elite, and that's really what it is. Like the conversation isn't, hey, I'm training a first overall pick potentially. It's, hey, I'm trying to help you develop as much as I can. And I want to learn from you as well, because obviously you know a lot about the game and how to pass rush. So it's been a great experience with Aiden, man. He's not letting any of the noise get to him. He knows exactly who he is and exactly what he wants to do. So that's been it's been an eye opener for me, because a lot of the times people will look at first overall or top three type picks, right? And it's one of those things that could be egotistical. They could not be humbled, or their head could be all over the place. Man, Aiden hit the ground running, and he never looked back. He was one of the more focused guys I've ever worked with from a college transitioning to the NFL type of mindset.
So what do you think are his best traits in his pass rush reps?
Ooh, it's hard to pick one.
Oh, that's good, right?
He's got the toolbox, like he's one of the more sharpened guys coming out of college that I've seen. You throw the tape on, he's doing a lot. Michigan allowed him to do a lot. I would say, he understands how to create his angles off of his rushes. He's not just rushing blindly; he's setting everything up, and that's very elite. That's very NFL style stuff. So his game is going to transition from day one. If he's healthy, Aiden, from day one to the end of the season, he has that type of potential to lead or be top 5 in the NFL in sacks.
Wow. So you do think he'll be a productive pass rusher and potentially a double-digit sack guy in the NFL?
I'd confidently say if he went out there with zero development, he would still be better than a lot of guys in the NFL.
Wow. So what do you think I don't want to, shoot the stuff right now, but a lot of people like to make player comps for, top picks and people who are so technically refined and just good at what they do. What do you think is his pro comp?
I mean, I'm one of those guys that I hate pro comps. Like I'm a hater when it comes to that. I feel like it's almost impossible. Like I understand it's part of the media wants to be able to do that, and it makes for good conversations. But I just never been a fan of it. And if I had to throw somebody out, I would probably go with TJ Watt. I think
Okay.
TJ, the way I watch TJ work when it comes to pass rush, when it comes to playing the edge, I see a lot of the traits that Aiden has as well.
That's awesome for any team that's going to be potentially drafting him. Maybe number one overall, maybe number two,
Yeah.
number three, but certainly any team that gets Aidan Hutchinson is getting one hell of a football player for sure. Now, on the flip side, you're also working with his teammate from Michigan, David Ojabo. Freakishly athletic player, super, super raw. Really only started playing football like 2 years ago, right? How has he grown from when you started to train him to now?
Oh man, it was fun. That was like that was one of the more fun experiences I had was with Jabo, because from day one meeting him to when we, shook hands and finished the program at the end, going into the combine, I was like, man, your growth was phenomenal. He has the want, and a lot of people don't necessarily know how bad they want to play football, but Jabo, a lot of the conversation we had was he would say, man, I just started doing this. I just started doing this. And it shows because he's very raw. He's got a lot of technical stuff he needs to work on. But that being said, he does things that human beings just quite frankly shouldn't be able to do.
Like what, man? You got to explain.
So there's a natural bend to him where
Right.
he can run full speed, and his full speed is faster than most people's. and he's a big body. He's not a small, type of guy. He's long, and the way he's able to run full speed and bend at the same time is just it's a different level. It's hard to explain. You turn the tape on and you see it all the time. But I can't wait until he's refined, because when he does start to figure this stuff out more so against the run, more so the schematics of football, his potential, there's no ceiling for what Jabo can do.
He's so explosive, so
Yeah.
raw, and as you said, he just started like 2 years ago. Like he's just getting started, and imagine if he was already developed. Like how good could this kid really be? Now, look, obviously, with this recent injury, he's not able to practice fully. So, how is his rehab going?
That's not something we necessarily talk about. We did talk. We talk once a week or so. We talked immediately after the injury happened. I wanted to check in. I let a couple days go by. I don't want to. You don't want to hit that too early while the wound's fresh. But he's in great spirits. I can tell you that, man. He's always been that way. He understands, again, just like Aiden, the control the controllable, and that's not something you can control. You get injured, all you can do is rehab, and that's where he is now, and he's in great spirits. He understands that wherever he goes in the draft, he's going to have to develop regardless. So he's not in too much of a he's not in too much pain. I would say for something like that, you would think he'd be down in the dumps, but he had a lot of positive energy, and I think he'll bounce back perfectly fine.
You love to hear that from Jabo, and especially it's going to be so fun just digging into just all those traits, just trying to, make a toolkit for him. Like I really do think like he's going to be a fearsome dude in this league. Like I have not seen somebody like that with just rawness, like and in a defense like Michigan, who's always had a good defense. He stood out to me as the first player more so than a lot of the other guys who are getting drafted this year, and it's going to be so fun to follow him in his journey. Another guy, still in the Big Ten is Boye Mafe. Now, he had a huge Senior Bowl. He logged 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and 3 tackles for a loss. And that performance led to him being named Senior Bowl's National Player of the Game. What has his training regimen been like?
So Boye was one of the first guys I was told through his agent that I'd be working with him. So Boye and I were connecting through social media after I got the word, and he was excited. I was just as excited, and one of the first things we talked about was, hey, Senior Bowl, let's go
Let's
make
go.
some money, let's go handle business. And he came in, he got in early January, and we had about 4 weeks of preparation, and we really just focused on the one-on-one pass rush, focused on learning a little bit more, because he was very raw as well. Minnesota didn't necessarily let him do too much, so he learned a lot, and learned a lot quickly. He was able to put that onto tape over in Mobile, put a show on, got the MVP. Had a huge week of practice. He was toasting those tackles, in my opinion.
I saw that all over Twitter and social media, man. It was
And we
fantastic.
knew he was going to do that. I had told him, I was like, look, confidence is going to be your best weapon. Like, these guys can't block you, and if you know that, there's no chance. They have no chance in the world. And so that was really fun. His training for the first phase for prep was very more focused on pass rush, and then we transitioned into combine type stuff, because he was working with the outside backers, so we were doing more drops,
Mhm.
and stuff, that movements that like the backers would do at the combine and at his pro day. And I was talking to him earlier today. He's excited for the draft to be over with, so he can find out, get settled in, and come back out to California for a week or so for prep.
That's a lot of guys. They just want this process to be over and done with. They just want to know
Yeah.
what they have, so they're settled and boom, they hit the ground running. Now look with Mafe, he's a pure pass rush specialist, right? And as you said, he was on those drop back combine drills in Indy, and you saw his elite speed, you saw his agility. He's able to move side to side, very good lateral agility. And in my opinion, he can have a major impact as a run defender as well. However, reading some scouting reports and looking at tape, he might not have the length to get around the blocks and sometimes may have trouble against the run. But how does having that speed and agility help him to improve his run block?
I mean, speed kills, and if you're faster than somebody, you get your hands inside quicker. There's so many little ways to fix, not being able to be as long or as strong or as tall, whatever, having those type of measurables. But I think Boye is not going to struggle in the run at all because he's a very aggressive-minded individual when it comes to playing football, and you have to have that kill or be killed mentality when it comes to playing the run in the NFL. So I think he showed it at the Senior Bowl too. He was getting TFLs. It wasn't just sacks. He was making plays. And if you turn on the tape from Minnesota, he was in the backfield a lot, making plays, stuffing the run. But just like any rookie, he's the speed of the game and how the run is set up in the NFL is completely different. So it comes down to preparing for your moment, continuing to grow from there.
Now, with Mafe, I've seen him line in the four tech and wide as a seven as well. Do you think he could sometimes play as a three tech?
I think it would be possible. I think you'd be, in my opinion, doing too much if you're doing that with Boye. I think he has shown that he's one of the better edge rushers in this class, and he's far from fully developed. So if you let him work that edge and let him stay out there and learn and get the reps, you're gonna have yourself a potential Pro Bowler down the road.
All right. I like that. I like that confidence and Mafe, and it's going to be fun watching him and his journey as well in the NFL. You do have Chris Hinton from Michigan as well.
That's right. Three
Quick-footed,
Michigan guys, man.
a lot
A
of
lot of
Michigan
Michigan
guys.
guys. I don't know
I,
what it is. Man.
I got to ask you, are you and Jim Harbaugh like best friends or
No,
something
no,
like that?
never met the guy in my life, man. Never met. I don't even know any Michigan coaches currently on the staff.
Oh,
Um,
man.
just the Wolverines they've been putting some pass rushers out. So
They have. And Mike McDonald used them very, very well
he
last
did.
year. Very, very well last year. And Hinton was a bit under the radar as well, but it was still a talented Wolverines defense. Now Hinton, he's a quick-footed pass rusher with loose hips. He can his skills and change of direction are really, really good. He moves very well for a big guy. You don't see that a lot and often. He's very athletic. However, Lance Zerline from NFL.com says that he has below average reaction time off the snap. In your opinion, like, what does this mean? And like, as a trainer, how would you help a prospect get better off the snap?
Well, a lot of it is where your eyes are from the jump. Eye discipline is huge, from your stance to your pass rush to your hand placement, all that stuff. It really starts with your eyes. But I would argue with Lance that if you turn on the tape of Hinton, the schematics of what Michigan was doing with their interior D linemen, it wasn't necessarily attacking. They were very
Mhm.
two-gap, play the run first. They weren't necessarily using their interior guys to rush a passer. Those guys were kind of just closing off those open gaps so that Ojabo and Hutchinson were coming hard off the edge right there. So when we watched film, it was really like, oh yeah, I see that too. Not necessarily reacting to the get off, but when you look at it and you look at it as a whole, the schematics weren't necessarily allowing him to. When we got to training and when we got to doing that kind of stuff, I saw no hiccups in Chris's get off and Chris's ability to move off the ball. He's actually one of those more underrated guys that he left school early. And if he would have stayed and had another year like he had, he could have been one of the best D tackles off the board. But he's taken advantage of a great opportunity, having a good season and coming out in a technically not so deep interior class, which is wrong in my opinion. But he's going to be a great guy for whoever picks him up. I didn't know this until I met him, but his dad played, I think, like 10 years in the league
Yeah.
at a pretty high level. So, it runs in the blood. And usually when it's like that, these guys are almost better than, their family members were.
So, as you said, it was more so of like a read and react type of situation for Hinton, and the scheme didn't really call for him to attack more. And this is some of the things that I have been struggling myself as, a scout or an evaluator because I don't know what the play call is or I don't know what the scheme is. And when you're training these guys, you can really see, hey, even though this guy is, this esteemed guy is saying one thing, it's actually, he was hit. It was hit. You didn't really see it because of the scheme, what it was. So maybe you think if he goes to a team which allows him to attack, you'll see that completely wipe off that scouting report. Like he can do that. He's able to do that. And it's fantastic having a guy like you. You're actually working with these players and you know how you can develop them, what they're good at, what they can improve as well. So it's fantastic to hear these things. One SoCal guy, Otito Ogbonnia at UCLA. Now, again, Zerline says that he's not an NFL pass rush threat. I personally disagree because I've seen him at the Senior Bowl play as well. And I think he had a rock solid showing. He says that he's got the length and strength to set the edge and spill the run. And I've heard, I've seen him block with his hands and use his hands very well. He's got powerful hands. Is that his primary specialty?
He's one of the strongest human beings alive. Like, I'm not kidding. Otito, when he puts hands on you, you are in like his control. The way he hits the bags in drills, like it echoes 3 miles down the block. Like every time, I think the first time we ever were doing bag drills, I think he hit the first couple of bags, and me, Boye, and Hutchinson looked at each other like, are we? Like it's different. It's different, and you look UCLA. I can't stress this enough. Like it happened last year. Oso Digizua.
Yep.
They don't have a system that tailors to their interior D lineman. It just doesn't. It hasn't for a long time. And Otito's going to be one of those guys that comes off the board late and he gets to camp and he's in the right scheme. And teams are going to be like, how did this guy fall this far? Because he's impressive with his size. He's extremely strong, powerful, quick twitch. He understands hand placement. Will he struggle in pass at times? Absolutely. He does struggle with his pass rush because he's never been asked to do that. So that is something he's learning and picking up. But even when I had him for those 4 weeks for Senior Bowl, he went out to Senior Bowl and he was putting people on their ass.
Yep.
So you might have seen a couple clips. He worked a couple moves that we were working on, and I think I know he caught Zion, the Boston College guard, with a nasty snatch and got him on his face too.
I believe it was on his right side. Like I saw him hit the pad straight up.
Yep, snatched him off, and that's something where it's like you can't really control that. If he gets his hands on you first, he's too strong and too powerful. So
I gotta say his leverage is really, really good too. He gets super low.
Yeah, he's almost too smart. Sometimes, and that's we've talked about this, and he knows, like, sometimes he thinks too much. He's a brilliant kid, and I think that's part of it is he's learning how to kind of process all that. But I see him still all the time out at UCLA because I train a lot of my vets there, and he's in good spirits, man. He's meeting with a bunch of teams, and he's like, look, I'm just excited, ready to get this over with so I can go to camp and show what I can do.
Of course. I saw this kid, Isaiah Thomas. I saw him play against Trevor Penning, and he used a variety of moves to win his matchups, which tells me he's got a refined skill set. He knows how to use his moves well and when to use it. Now, he's a versatile edge rusher that can work inside and outside. He can play the 3, he can play the 2, he can set the edge as well. How enticing has he been so far?
I loved working with IT. He was one of the first guys I got with. It was his agent and I. I train a lot of his vets and I train a lot of his rookies getting ready. So we had a good relationship. He got out to his facility early. So I had him for 2 weeks before anybody else. Ooh. So we got some extra work in. And, I told him, I was like, same thing. Hey, Senior Bowl, huge opportunity for you to flash inside, outside. and we worked on a certain skill set of moves that he was able to acquire in a short amount of time. And I think what people don't know too much about him is that he can play the run incredibly well. He is very quick twitch and he understands the schematics of football. And he was in a bunch of different systems at OU. You know,
Yeah.
he was in a three front, he was in a four front, he was moving around all over the place. So there's not much he hasn't seen. So for him, you know, he's going to be able to pick up schematics very quickly at the next level. And like you said, he can move to the three, he can play the edge. It's really, you know, pick your poison with him. He obviously a rookie. He's got to develop some stuff, but it was a lot of fun working with him. And he's a high spirited guy too. A lot of fun to talk to. Just overall like A+ person.
And before we get to the last guy, I want to ask you, are you able to potentially develop these guys in those short zones as well, just reading the flats as well, use it, just reading the running backs as well? Because I feel like in this day and age, how the NFL is moving, it's very quick, tempo based, and running backs are getting out into space very easily off the edges and catching those passes. Do you think, as time goes on, you know, learning how to cover will be, crucial for edge rushers?
I think it's already kind of there. But I always say like if it isn't broke, you know, don't try to fix it. The At the end of the day, you're drafting or you're paying these guys a lot of money to go get the quarterback, and you're paying the guys behind them a lot of money to cover those guys. So you know everybody's got a job to do. I think there's certain guys that you can ask to do multiple things as they develop, but I think there's certain guys that when I see them drop into coverage, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, that's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and he's playing the flat. Like, come on, what are we really talking about? So I think, you know, as a coach, I can say this, but, you know, football is simple. Coaches make it hard.
Yeah.
I think it's been like that for a long time. So I always try to check myself as a coach, too. Like, are we doing too much? And, you know, it's a good ego check.
Number 4 from Alabama, Chris Allen. Not a lot of people had heard from him. He might have been overshadowed by Will Anderson a little bit. Everybody loves Will Anderson. But when I watched this guy, I was like, who is this man's? Like, who is this man's?
Get
Right?
ready. Get ready. I'm telling you, Chris Allen, if I'll put it to you this way, Chris Allen doesn't break his foot week one against Miami. No hate on Will Anderson. I think he might be one of the best players in the history of college football. We're not talking as much about him. We're talking a lot about Chris Allen. This guy is special off the edge. And he had Liz Frank. You know, the Liz Frank
Ugh.
broken foot, man, that's tough. But if you turn on the tape, I think he played 10 plays against Miami week one. I think all 10 plays he was either pressuring the quarterback, making the tackle, or forcing a fumble, sack, something like that.
And you know what sucks as a Hurricanes fan and a guy
Yeah.
who's been a Miami fan my entire life? I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a rough game for everybody.
Yeah.
But
But I'm telling you, man, get ready because if you don't know, I mean, I'm sure people know that do this for a living, but if you don't know who Chris Allen is, when he's playing early as a rookie, and people are like, "Where was this guy in the draft?" Like, just remember this kid he's ready for the NFL, and
we
he's
gotta
Bama
jot it
built.
down.
You guys are Bama built, so they're different.
We got it jotted down. We got it jotted down. Now, look, of course, this is a Miami Dolphins podcast as well. We talk mainly about the draft. So, we talk about prospects that the Dolphins could look for as well. And I know we were speaking a little bit off the show as well. Have you trained any Miami Dolphins players?
Yeah, Jalen Phillips, who was their first round pick last year, I had him for his what would have been combine but COVID situation. So we had about like 6 weeks going into his pro day. We got to work out in Southern California. He was with a group of guys, Oso Digizua for the Cowboys,
You had Levi as well.
Levi Onzuruke was out there too. So that was a good group of guys. Jalen's fantastic player, man. He's just an all around good dude. Was talking to him the other day too. He's stayed out in Miami this offseason, got a good situation going on. But just keeping in touch with him, making sure everything's everything, and Miami's got a guy. Got a guy.
The Dolphins seriously do have a guy, and just watching a lot of his games last season, he was this close, just this close and inches away from potentially having a double-digit uh, sack season in his rookie year as well. If you were to talk to Jalen right now and say, "Hey, you were this close," how would you tell him to improve to get those double-digit numbers?
Well, I think sacks are kind of like almost blown out of proportion in a sense. Like their sacks are great and they get guys paid and they're the big stat. It's like hitting a home run. But if you look at his overall game, he was able to go from week one into the final week of the season and get better. And I think that's the biggest thing is he never stalled out. He always took that leap and always got better week by week. And it's hard as a rookie to do that. It is. So for him to be able to put those types of games together and get better, I would say just keep doing what you're doing. And focus on the little things. Focus on the little things. Finishing the tackle that you need to, maybe creating a little bit more of an edge, maybe getting your hands inside a little more. Like there's little small details that always help you, but don't overthink it and just focus on the day by day and be where your feet are. Like that's the biggest thing for these young guys. Try not to overthink.
Try not to overthink, young guns. That's all it is. Now, Jalen Phillips is a Miami Dolphin, right? Could you potentially see any one of these guys that you're training be a Miami Dolphin?
Yeah, I mean, look, it looks like they have their edge guys pretty locked up. I think they signed the other guy across from Jalen to a pretty big contract. They got big 94 inside. So
Wilkins.
not necessarily I don't think they're looking to spend too much capital early, from what I see on their roster. But there's some mid to late round guys that would work well in their system. And you can never have enough edge pressure. You can never have enough D tackles that could get after the quarterback and play the run. So, out of those 7 guys that we talked about, I think, they'd be lucky to have any of them. So, hopefully.
If you could take one Dolphins player and train them and learn from them, who would it be?
Ooh, can we go throwback?
Yeah, go ahead. How about we go throwback and current?
If we go throwback, I'd go Jason Taylor
Of course.
because when I was growing up, I was a big fan of his game. And then I just go with my guy Jalen, man, just because I want to be, and we talk about this, I want to be a part of his development over the years and help him get to where he wants to go, even if that's for a week out of the year, once or twice in the off season. And I want to, a big part of what I do and why I do it is because I enjoyed seeing these guys develop. So, if he goes away for a couple years and comes back for a week, and I get to see like, man, your development in these last 2 years is phenomenal, man. Congratulations. I love to see that growth. So, that kind of stuff is great for me.
Now, before we go, just a message from our sponsors, Prize Picks. Register on prizepicks.com and use the promo code 5 to get 100% match on your deposit. Again, use the code 5. Now, Eddie, before we let you go, my man, what's on your itinerary the next couple weeks?
Man, I'm just getting ready to get this draft over with. Ready to see where these guys go so we can start figuring out the next step. But I've been at it since early January, nonstop. This was my end season. OTAs just kicked off, so I've got a little break here. I've got a couple vets that aren't going to OTAs and a couple free agents that are still waiting to figure out their situation that I'm with. But this is more of like a little slowdown for me going into May. Usually take the month of May. I'll usually head out of town for a little bit, maybe see some family, and then prep myself getting ready for a long summer, man. Summer comes up quick.
Yeah, summer comes up quick. You're doing a lot of private workouts, everything like that too. And maybe even for the 2023 Edge class as well. Some of these guys may even reach out to you and be like, Eddie.
Hey, it's already started.
It's already started. Look at that.
Right when it ends, right back around. You gotta you got to have short-term memory when it comes to this. You got to get ready to go.
So who's on deck for the 2023 Edge class for you?
You're gonna have to stay tuned, man. I can't give the
Ah,
secrets away.
I
They'll
tried,
be
man.
again. I'm who knows? There might be another Michigan guy the way it's going right now. So there's a couple guys. I usually grab a West Coast guy, a couple Big Ten guys, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, a couple more Senior Bowl guys. I'm back to back in Senior Bowl MVPs.
There you
So
go.
I'm looking for the three-peat. We want the belt. You know how that goes. There's a lot of competition out there, so
You
definitely
gotta
coming.
you gotta do the Aaron Rodgers belt thing, man. Three
Exactly.
P champ, Eddie.
Exactly.
Eddie, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, man. You have no idea how much I appreciate you. Where can our listeners and followers see you at?
I mean, on Twitter, it's D Line Coach Ed. D Line Coach Ed, and then on Instagram, it's just at my full name, which you can see there, Eddy Mcgilvra. I try to post as much stuff as keep it consistent. Not too big on the social media stuff, but I try to get as much stuff out there so people can maybe pick up a thing or two and be inspired by the training.
Of course. Well, if any prospects are watching, any high school, college, or even vets, check out D-line coach Eddie Mcgilvra for sure.
I
As
appreciate it,
always,
man.
of course, as always, folks, thank you guys for watching the Scout and Combine on the 5 Reasons Network. Fins up, baby.